So in this tutorial, we are going to start building a very basic WebVR scene. And this is as basic as it gets. So if you're following along, you want to go up to aframe.io and go up to the top right and click on Docs. And what we're going to do is just scroll down here a little bit and go to building a basic scene. So this is the tutorial that we will basically be working with. We're going to start out by entering in this code right here. First of all, before we get started with that, let me jump back. Before you start, you'll probably want to create a file folder somewhere on your desktop. I just called mine A-frame tutorial, and I created an HTML file, tutorial _1_0. .html. This is important, obviously, for organization, and also as we progress along, we will probably be adding some external code in future tutorials, like JavaScript files. So it will need a path to those files, a reliable path. So that will help you out if you stay organized there. So going back to our site, here's what we want to do. Scroll on down to starting with HTML. And we are just going to save ourselves a little bit of time and just copy and paste this. Again, I am using Atom as the text editor, and I just went ahead and pasted that code right there into my HTML. And the one thing, the key to making all this work is this little piece of code right here. It's basically referencing the JavaScript file from A-frame, from the CDN. You can download this file and put it in your local folder, but this is probably, at least when you're getting started, the easiest way to do it. So basically you're just pulling, if you ever pulled any external, like jQuery or something like that, if you pulled that from CDN, that's basically what that is doing. So just copy and paste that code and we can go ahead and get started. Already, right off the bat, if you are have, like I say, any familiarity with HTML at all, this is going to look pretty familiar to you. So it's basically using HTML tags that you're probably already used to, like a p tag or a div tag. Those are probably some things, if you've used HTML before, that you know about. And it will also follow the same kind of structure, using attributes to modify whatever we create. I'll show you what that. You'll see what that means in just a second. So where we want to start is between these two scene elements here. Basically, just like in any HTML, it has an opening tag and a closing tag. And what we want to create is a box. Now, if you're coming from Cinema 4D or Blender or something like that, you know about primitives. You've worked with primitives before. And so if we wanted to create a box, we could just do that. But you could also create a sphere or a cone or even a torus. So you just basically create these tags, an opening tag and a closing tag. And remember, it always starts with that A right there, dash. It's an A and a dash. And so that would create your geometry, basically. So, but we're going to work with a box right now. And I'm just going to put a closing tag for this. And again, how we are going to modify this box is in the attributes section right there. So for instance, we could give this a color. And I'm just going to say blue. And since we're working with a box, we need a width, a height, and a depth, right? So we'll start with the width, and we will give it a width of 2, let's say. And then we'll do a height, and we'll give that a height of 2 as well. And then we will go with give it a depth, and we'll just give it a depth of 1. It's worth mentioning in the color here, you could also use a hexadecimal if you wanted to. But I am just for purposes of this demo, I'm just going to use blue. So we want to save this, and we will work our way back over to the browser. I have tutorial HTML loaded up here, and we know that it's working. We don't see our box yet, but we know that it's working because we see the HMD icon down here. So, but it is working. Trust me, it is working. there's our box. And the reason we did not see it right away, I'm using the the WASD keys to kind of move around here. And you can use those. But basically, the reason we didn't see it initially was because our camera and our box were both created at the 000 position. So, so basically our camera was just right on top of our box. So we needed to back up in order to see it. So we can correct all of that. And we're going to do so right now by giving it, just like we gave it a color and a width and a depth, we can also give it a position. So let's give our box a position, and we will say, we'll put it at the 0 position, and then 2 on the, this is X, Y, and Z coordinates, by the way. So we'll go X, Y, and Z. So on the X it's at 0, Y at 2, and on the Z it's at -5. So if we go back here and reload that page, need to save it, and reload that page, now we see our box. So it is now on the -5 Z. All right, so that is impressive for about the first 2 seconds that you do it. Let's add some more attributes here. And I'll tell you what, I am going to go ahead and delete the width, height, and depth. We can actually kind of shorthand all of that if we want by just doing scale. And you got to get used to this syntax a little bit, especially if you're not used to writing this. It's always the attribute equals, and then in double quotes, that's where you would put the value. So again, we will work with width, height, and depth. And so we just basically kind of shortened all of that just to put that in the scale. And just for fun, let's also give it a rotation. So we're going to rotate that 45 degrees on the Y and 45 degrees on the Z. Make sure I got my space there. And we'll come back over into our scene, and there we go. There we have it. So we have our blue box kind of floating in space there. So as you can see, right now all this is, it's kind of bland. We got that white background and, not much is moving. So we can change that background element by adding a sky. And we do that, as you might have guessed, by a sky. Not sky, sky. And so we will just close that tag once again. And we will give that a color. And we're going to say hashtag 222. So let's go ahead and save that. Just to keep all this organized, I'm just going to put a big space in between those. And we will come back over and reload that scene, and we should start seeing, there we go, a background. So that is our sky. So that's our blue box with the sky element. So moving on, next we are going to add textures to this box and use the asset management system to texture our cube and do a lot more fun stuff. So we'll see you in that tutorial.